And it is written, 1/3 of the trees shall turn brown, 1/3 of the fish in the sea shall boil, 1/3 of the grass shall turn brown. And what would do that globally, turn everything brown? I think 90% of us would predict and guess that would be the sun. And since 2011, I've been watching this extreme heat, gathering data on not just the carbon dioxide, but the heat from the sun. And I've been watching this whole thing unfold for years, and tried to share most of it with you. Some of it I haven't. And basically, in like the Southwest, there are drought-resistant cacti in the Southwest, and even they are taking a beating. The saguaros, if you look at all the saguaros, all of them now have a scar layer, not a green layer, but a scar layer that starts from the ground and goes all the way up 2 feet, sometimes 3 feet high, and it's dead skin. It's not green. It's like what you would find on a dead saguaro. So what would do that to every single saguaro without shade in the Southwest? What would do that? And that would be a hot ground. So then when you talk about, and you look at the ground temperatures, and you see that some places during their peak heat, you find recorded temperatures that are 40 degrees above the average. 40 degrees above the average. Now you're saying, well, you're comparing it to the average. You're not comparing it to the absolute records. But 40 degrees is a lot. That is huge. That's massive. It's incredible. It's unfathomable. It's hard to grasp. 40 degrees above an average? Are you kidding me? So it's only 10 degrees above a record. Usually records, once you break them, they're hard to break. Why? Because they're records. Records like in Olympics, records in especially like swimming, they fall all the time due to technology. But they don't fall by much. They fall by hundredths of a second. They get inched out. Whether it's long jump, high jump, the mile, it doesn't matter. These records are barely broken, and sometimes you go decades before they're broken. But when it comes to heat records, it's amazing. And cold records too, because these vortexes, these giant, massive vortexes that have replaced our jet stream, take air from the Arctic and bring it further south than it's ever been. But we've noticed what the heat has done, the sun especially, because we're looking for sun-driven phenomenon, not just air temperature-driven phenomenon, but sun-driven, because that heats solid objects to the point where you can't even touch them. 5 seconds on some surfaces will cause a second-degree burn. A second-degree burn. That's what you get when you touch a hot skillet. Of course, you don't hold it for 5 seconds. You drop it immediately. So it amazes me, because I've been watching this phenomenon, and I watched the tops of eucalyptus trees die. And many places, the eucalyptus trees are 40, 50 feet above the ground, if not even higher, 60 feet. Very, very big trees. And why would the tops just burn, or die? And that's because it's the sun. 2011, what happened? 70,000 heat records. And then we saw a huge, massive increase in geoengineering. It really kicked in. But what bothers me is it's just like the king tides. You hear about a king tide in San Francisco from the San Francisco newspaper, but you don't hear about the king tides globally. The same with the trees. What's killing our elm trees in Connecticut? What's killing our beech trees in New York? What's killing our maple trees in Michigan? Basically, any tree dying phenomenon that you read about in a local state or local city newspaper, you can bet, in fact, a lot of money that it's not just happening in that state. So, I investigated the tree death phenomenons over and over again, and so this time I decided to make a video about it. Why? Because it was prophesized. And to me, prophecy is simply a historical record projected forward. History repeats itself. The Earth, the solar system, runs in cycles. Extinctions run in cycles. Well, to me, that's a solar system cycle if you have extinctions that are periodic. What, like clockwork, would cause mass extinctions? And a solar system cycle would. Now, when we see trees dying, and somebody had sent me an excellent article about 2 years ago when we still had the Silver Safe and we had a Todd Marley, we had a website up for his music, and then of course it was all sabotaged. Everything. People were making massive purchases, then declaring fraud, yet keeping the merchandise that they said was fraudulent. I mean, it was a deliberate criminal attempt to bring down the things that we were doing to keep us afloat and to keep us going and to keep the research happening. But in 2011, I noticed the eucalyptus tops dying, and I knew why. And then I went out and looked at the saguaros and saw that the bottoms of the saguaro skin had died and scarred over, just like a burn scar. And it wasn't just one or two, it was all of them, except for the ones that had north-facing slopes and shade. What was different about the north-facing slope? So here I am, pulling up all these articles about dying trees, and I have to type in the specific tree. Then I dive into it, and I also type in trees in general, and then I looking at state to state to state. But the one that interested me too really was the Tahoe tree deaths, because they had a record snowpack in 2017, epic snowpack, double, with really wet snow, by the way, that melted incredibly fast for how deep it was. They got rid of that snowpack in the same time the regular snowpack would melt. So that tells you something when you have twice the ice, and it doesn't take you any longer to get rid of it per melt. We all remember the floods. We all remember Oroville Dam. I mean, it was epic what was going on there. And we can no longer keep those vortexes out. Now they're harping way out by Hawaii to drive these storms northward, or to split the storms, because harping off Alaska coast wasn't doing it. It didn't keep these storms from coming in and through California. And now they're doing it again, but they're just harping these things sooner because they're so big and massive, these vortexes that have dominated the northern hemisphere and are now showing up in the southern hemisphere. Now, so basically the article that was sent to me, I do believe it could have been the elm or the maple trees. When I read the article, my mouth dropped open, I fell out of my chair, and then I'm wondering why I was so surprised. Well, what I was surprised is how stupid people pretend to be, and I point this out always in research articles about how stupid everybody is, because you have to pretend to be stupid. And remember, when they say you can't fix stupid, that's wrong. You can fix stupid through education. What is impossible to fix is when people pretend to be stupid. That, my friends, is very difficult to overcome. But they were talking about the elm trees dying, the leaves turning brown and turning black at the top of the trees. Of course, before they turn black, they turn brown. And the tops of the trees are dying, and it's a disease. Yeah, it's a sun-related illness is what it is. It's a heat-related illness. It's a radiation-related illness. Why would you kill just the top of your trees? And why would the middle part of the trees still withstand the disease, quote unquote? Well, in the middle of the tree you have what? All together now, shade. At the top of the tree you don't. And I noticed this with persimmons in the backyard, in Karen's backyard. The persimmons at the top of the tree were getting baked. They were a month away from being ripe, and they were already ripe. You could eat the persimmons at the top of the tree. Why? Because they were getting cooked. And guess what? It was just the sun-facing sides that were getting cooked. So I'm reading through all these articles. Of course, they're talking about the pine trees dying after the 2017 snow melt. We lost more trees at Lake Tahoe Basin than we did in the previous years. Well, you would be like, well, I thought it was drought, and we just had record water. So what was killing the trees in 2017? Well, something else happened in 2017. We still had sunspots, but we were seeing an epic increase in cosmic rays. Cosmic rays in the solar system release radiation, and all types of radiation as these cosmic rays interact with other things like our magnetic field, the sun's magnetic field, and the sun's particles. Also, along with those cosmic rays are electrons. Those are notorious for producing even higher energies. So I read today about they're taking the trees that survived the droughts and survived the bark beetles of the sugar pine trees, and we're going to find out. We got the seedlings, we got the seeds, we planted the seedlings. We're going to replant these resistant trees, quote unquote resistant trees, because somehow they figured they were genetically superior. And the first thing I did was think to myself, they were north-facing trees. That's the first thing I said to myself. And then, of course, as I read the article, where did it come? Where did they come from? Most of them are found in the North Shore. And where did they plant them? They planted them when they seeded. We're going to replant thousands and thousands of sugar pines that are resistant. But where did you plant them? On the North Shore. Now, you want to see a resistant tree planted on the South Shore, because that's where most of the sun shines most of the time. And where did most of the dead trees show up? Where did most of the dead trees that died in 2017? Surprising everybody after such a record wet winter. Where did they die? Everybody all together, the south-facing shore. So the South Shore dies, the North Shore survives. That screams. It jumps up and down. It yells at you. It highlights with flares. It's the sun, stupid. And then we look at the other trees. What's killing the maple trees? They're only dying on one side of the tree. An article, I swear. What are they killing the twigs? Only one side of the tree. Now, come on. That's not a disease. Now, the bark beetle shows up, and even in the elm tree, and even in especially the beech trees are taking a hitting. BEECH. Those trees they make the beech nuts. Those trees are taking a pounding, and you would think it was just Connecticut, it was just New York. No, it's everywhere they grow. And what's happening? Well, the leaves are wilting, and they're getting black stripes on them, black bands. Well, what causes black banding? What causes a tree to turn black on the leaves? Well, that's a sunburn. That's what a sunburn looks like. Well, we looked at the trees and we saw that they had a nematode. I hate the word nematode because it reminds me of lime and it reminds me of morgellons. But they got a nematode that shows up in Asia. We haven't seen that nematode in the United States, and now we do. So it's the nematode killing the trees. However, the nematodes don't kill the trees in Asia. So what would make them kill the tree now? So the nematodes are a parasite. They pick on dead and weakened tissue. So when a nematode shows up on a tree, when the bark beetle shows up on a tree, when these infestations show up on trees and that they haven't been around for a while, it's not the infestation that's killing the trees. It surely doesn't help the tree survive, but something happened to that tree to make it vulnerable. So trees are dying all over the world. I made videos about this in 2016, 2015, 2014. People in New Zealand were taking pictures of their gardens and their trees in their backyard saying, wow, I'm not doing anything different. What's killing my trees? That's happening all over the United States. Try to grow fruit. Try to grow vegetables. Berkeley's found out that not just pine trees, but other trees under extreme ultraviolet, they may survive, but they can't reproduce. It's incredible stress upon the trees. So when you see an article about dying trees, please make a comment about how moronic the theories are, as long as you're ignoring record radiation coming from the sky. Record ultraviolet C, record ultraviolet B, record infrared, record visible light except for green light, record gamma radiation, record extreme UV is, that's what kills you. So if you're going to ignore all that and then take us down this rabbit hole of infestations and disease, you'll never figure out that all we need to do is shade the trees. And if you don't think that the government knows we need to shade the trees, what do you think they spray mineral oxides in the atmosphere for? So until next time, cover your trees. Shade is gold. Shade is gold. And there'll be a day when people will be forking over their gold to get shade. Until next time, be prepared, not scared.